Growing up in poverty without a father figure, Welcome Witbooi was an easy target for the gangs that roamed South Africa's Cape Province. Young, impressionable, and angry, he accepted the challenge to shoot an innocent pregnant woman as his initiation. It wasn't long before he ended up in prison, where he infamously became the leader of one of South Africa's most notorious gangs. His life seemed to be heading in a downward spiral of violence until a chance encounter that changed his thinking and life forever. Witbooi now dedicates his time to educating South Africa's youth about the dangers of gang life.
Welcome, thank you so much for coming in today and talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you please take us through your childhood up to the point to when you joined a gang?
I was 12 years old when I joined the gangs, but I do come from a very loving, caring family, I must admit. But it's just the fact that my father was always busy working and he wasn't really present, available but not present. And my mom was always busy, you know, she worked really hard, as my father also did. But there wasn't really that type of, you know, father and son relationship, and that is what I really yearned for. And I think for me that was predominantly why I was drawn to the gangs, because they had this family structure, the sense of belonging, the sense of, you know, that sense of you are special, you belong somewhere. The guy that got to recruit me, he used to say to me that he saw potential in me. And I remember my father not once saying that.
How did you move up the gang ladder?
I got recruited into the gangs and I started walking with them, obviously doing things that they used to do. So they had to teach me how to rob, how to steal, how to jump over fences. And I remember at the age of 16, this was where I was like really inaugurated to becoming a full-fledged gang member. And this is the time when I got my gun. Just to give people a bit of context, in South Africa there's this big belief that there's stages of being a man. So coloreds, because I'm colored, and colored being from the Cape Flats, I grew up in the Western Cape, and as coloreds, in order for us to be men, we go to prison. If you are black, as a black man, you go to the bush, you get circumcised, you become a man. As a white man, you go to the army, fight the war, you become a man. So we had that kind of interpretation of what it was like. So I knew at some point, being a gangster, that I would have to go to prison. But I didn't want it to be soon though, not as soon as it became. The code is that you drive around, you have your group of men with you, they teach you how to use the gun, number one, because it was a snub-nose 38 special, 8 bullets. I never loaded a gun, I never held a gun in my hand. So when I had this gun in my hand, they showed me how to load it, and they showed me that point, pull the trigger. And so they said, we will drive with you and we will show you a target. And then we got to this train station. I remember it was in Durbanville. This lady was coming out of the train station and she was walking to a car, and they said, that's your target, that's your victim. And I was scared, I don't want to lie. It's like I was scared. This is the first time I was shivering. I couldn't barely hold the gun. And as I stepped out of the car, I walked up to this lady. She looked at me, I looked at her. We had this eye contact. And she held her stomach and looked at me and said, please do not shoot, I'm pregnant. I was like, at that moment, I did not know what to do, how to respond. I looked at the guys in the car. They were like, shoot, shoot. You know, it's like, what are you waiting for? And I'm looking at her saying, please don't shoot, I'm pregnant. You can have anything you want. When she said you can have anything you want, my mind raced to say, what would be the best possible thing that I can take from you that could ease these guys' request? Because in the gangs, when they request you to take a life, that's the request. And if I fail this mission, I'm not going to be part of the gang. I don't even know what they are going to do to me if I do that. But just the thought of looking at this woman and her looking at me and saying, please do not shoot, I am pregnant. I was like, but if I shoot her, I'm not just ending her life, I'm ending the life of an unborn child. And my mind just went into like this fast thinking, and I said, can just get into your car and let's follow that car, you know. And it went from taking her from where she was and like just drive behind this car. And I also started to realize that if I drive with this woman to Valhalla Park, I know what's going to happen. I mean, she's seen my face. She will see their faces. So they might end up doing things to her and kill her. So whichever way, she's still going to die. So we got to the robots. It was in busy Fureteka Road. And what we did not notice was the fact that there was cameras in the train station, and the local authorities were already notified of a kidnapping that occurred. And as we were driving, we stood at Fureteka Road, we got cornered in by the police. I told her to jump out of the car, and she left. But she survived, and we all ended up getting arrested. And that's how I ended up in prison.
So what was your epiphany moment? What was your moment in prison when you were like, I don't want to do this anymore?
I was 21 years old when I took my first life in prison. I had one star on my shoulder. By the age of 25, I became the first star general of the 28s, meaning that I had 4 stars on both my shoulders. I had taken 8 people's lives just to get to that stage of being a general. I was ruthless. I was in pain. I was hurt. I was angry at the world. I was angry at everybody. My father never came to see me in prison, so I had that anger. My mother, disowned me. I had that anger. Prison became my home. And I was in charge of 2,500 men. I could tell them to do whatever I wanted them to do. I could do whatever I wanted to do. I had power to do whatever I wanted to do. But I remember sitting in the courtyard one day, and there were men sitting in front of me, and they were talking about what they had done, because they just fresh came out of the outside world and they were just in prison. And this one was talking about raping. It was like, I was raping this woman and I could see she liked it, and and I gave her more and all of that. And they were laughing about it. This other one was talking about, I stabbed this guy, I slit his throat and he was bleeding, and I took his phone, and they were laughing about it. And this question came to me as I was sitting there, and the question was, if I were to be a father one day, what kind of father am I going to be? The question went deep, and it said, if you were to be a father to a girl child, what kind of father are you going to be? How will you protect her against men like these, against men like yourself? Because I realized that if I were to have a daughter, my daughter would bring back a guy that would look like me, because daughters normally bring back a man that assimilate their father.
I'm sure there's a lot of elements to this. Can you briefly tell us how you managed to get out?
There's no way out. But as a general, you write the law, you write the process, you write the procedures. And remember, I was a straight-A student, so I understood the story, I understood the number. When you step into the circle, it's called a general's quarter. So you have 4 generals, 2 standing in front of you and 2 standing behind you. The 2 generals standing in front of you are called the judges. The 2 generals standing behind you are called the executioners. They are the only ones that have knives. So when you step into the circle, you have to step into the circle naked. But obviously you have a blanket all the way from your room. And so I stepped into the circle naked because there's a paranoia to generals that, what if I call these 4 generals to kill them and take control of their 4 prisons? So I'm stepping into the circle completely naked. The 2 guys look at me. They say, welcome, why do you want to leave the number? These judges. And as they stand, they're asking me this question. I'm like, because I want to be a good father. I want to leave this place and I want to mean something. I want to become a different man. I gave them all the reasons that were, that were good. And they looked at me and said that you do understand that the decision that you are making today might end your life. Because the 2 guys standing behind me are the executioners. If these 2 judges do not agree, they can stab me in the back where my kidneys are, and then twist and pull out the knives. It will be 5 minutes and I'll be dead. But something interesting happens in prison when I die. So as I lay there dying, prison will go under lockdown for 8 days. And for 8 days, they will sing praises. And they will write songs about me and talk about the great things that I've done as a general. And that's it. My legacy dies. After that, another general comes into power. So I thought to myself, imagine having a legacy of 8 days. So as I said, these are my reasons that I want to step out. I don't care about the consequences, but I really want to be free. I stepped out. They said to me, please just give us a minute. We want to think about this. As I was walking away from the circle, one of the generals called me back and said, welcome, do you remember 6 years ago? I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I was struggling to read this letter that I got from my family. You took the letter from me and you read it. And you asked me whether I wanted to learn to read or write. And you sat with me and you taught me. You took months to teach me to read and write. It is because of you today that I can read and write. Thank you for that. And I felt like this was a goodbye. You know, they made that decision, they're going to kill me. But it wasn't. It was that one act of kindness that saved my life. And I did not know that 6 years later, that very same guy that was a nobody, sitting in a cell at Drakensberg prison, would be a general 6 years later. And the same general that would have the power over my life. And because of that one act of kindness, I was given an opportunity to survive, to live. And that is why I always say to people that no matter who you are, CEO, president, whoever you are, no matter how wonderful person you are, owning companies and whatever you have, but that doesn't give you power. That does not give you respect. That does not give you anything. It is being kind. It is serving people from a place of love that makes you really live. And that's my legacy.